There's a huge inherent problem with the attachment styles framework and the way people apply it, and we're going to share with you that exact thing in this video.
Hey, it's David here.
And I'm Renee.
And we're very passionate about attachment styles because we got 3 boys ourselves, and raising them by ourselves, we really had to not only learn, but go through and explore every facet of this particular framework and how it affects not only our kids' relationships, but our relationships with them, and our own relationships. And that it helped us kind of evaluate how we deal with relationships ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very important framework. And by the way, if you haven't delved into this framework, go do our quiz on our website. Go to Renee's links, do the quiz, it's free, and you'll get a really in-depth understanding of this particular framework.
By the way, it'll give you a score. I think some people have a huge issue taking these attachment styles quiz because they think that they get a different result on every attachment quiz that they take. So, as it relates to the topic of this video, I'd like to say that our quiz will give you an attachment score for where you are on the, maybe it's more this way, on the sliding scale of insecure to secure. So are you, say, 80% secure, 50% secure, 30% secure? Where do you fit on that sliding scale? Because this, we feel, is a more accurate reflection of how you operate in your relationships.
So this is the big problem with the framework, is that people use these categories as an absolute. So they go, oh, I'm absolutely in the anxious category, or I'm absolutely in the secure or avoidant. And they're not absolutes. It's on a sliding scale. The more you understand this sliding scale, the more you understand your behavior as a whole. Because at the end of the day, when you're anxious, what happens is when you're really, really anxious, you go from 0 to 100, your nervous system is on overdrive.
0 to 100 in what?
In terms of your
stress.
Stress patterns. And when you go to overdrive enough, your nervous system is going to be worn out and it's going to want to take a break. And then you dissociate. When you dissociate, you become completely avoidant. So you're a mixture of anxious and avoidant in those times. So the category way of defining this framework, I think it's a little bit outdated. I mean, as much as I love the work of Mary Ainsworth and Bowlby, they've done some amazing work, and some of the studies and research they've done laid the foundation to every piece of literature and how we understand this whole framework.
Their work is so important. It's so important. You know, you see people saying, oh, it's unimportant, it's irrelevant. I mean, no, the attachment styles is crucial to who we are deep down in our soul. And you can see it in the children. As parents of 3 young boys who have been there every step of the way, you know, we've had zero help. With our first child, we did have my mother-in-law, but we very quickly eliminated that. Every step of the way, I mean, our kids don't even attend school. We're with them 24/7. And we've had a lot of interactions with other kids as well through, you know, jiu-jitsu competitions, other sports, and just, we can see how important attachment is because it builds the foundation for how you relate, or if you relate at all, or if you value relationships at all in the future. And it is so crucial because, for example, if you're an avoidant, you're likely not even watching this, okay? But if you're a true avoidant, relationships are just not interesting to you, which means you will be more likely to go out there and make people think you're interested in relationships, but more so, all you're interested in is what you can get out of them. You're interested in the transaction, in how they make you feel superficially. And you're more likely to just treat people as just like milk cows, places to go where you just supply. Now we're getting to a different framework, combining maybe narcissism and attachment styles, but that's not what this video is about. Let's go back to categories versus sliding scales. I have read a lot of discussions on forums, in Reddit, online, anywhere, and I've seen people's frustration with the attachment styles, and a lot of people kind of want to think that, oh, I'm anxious with one person, but I'm avoidant with another, or I'm secure when the other person's secure. And I can see why people think that, but that's not quite the attachment styles.
It is not. Just because you avoid someone doesn't mean that you're avoidantly attached from this framework. Okay, we all like to avoid. You know, we avoid the tax man. We avoid.
What did you just say?
Okay, we don't avoid the tax man.
Don't avoid the tax man.
No, don't. Pay your taxes on time. We'll avoid things in our lives, things that we may perceive as pain. But that doesn't make us avoidantly attached from this framework. And people have been trying to butcher this framework for so long, from articles saying that attachment styles don't exist, to the fact that now there's 27 different attachment styles.
Oh gosh.
You could be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin?
Austin. Yeah.
Okay, so people have been butchering this framework for a long time, and it's really important for you to understand the actual framework rather than different people's interpretation of what it is,
Yeah.
because these interpretations get changed, get switched out all the time, and then that just leaves you confused and wondering, okay, maybe it wasn't that good of a framework to begin with. But no,
Yeah.
it is a really, really, really useful framework.
It's incredible.
You just have to understand how it works. And instead of thinking of it as just different categories, and in fact, I think it was Mary Ainsworth who said there was only three, who came up with only three.
Mary Ainsworth, she had 3 attachment styles. And Mary Ainsworth is the person who did the experiment, the famous experiment, the strange situation. She studied how toddlers from like 12 to 18 months responded when they were in the room with their mother and a stranger, how they responded when their mother left the room and they were left alone with the stranger. And then again, they observed how that toddler responded when their mother again entered the room. And it revealed something very fascinating about the way these babies or toddlers related to their mothers and thus their attachment style. So there was 3. It was avoidant, anxious, ambivalent. Can you see how anxious and avoidant are connected? And secure. So now obviously with modern day times, you've got the disorganized attachment style, which kind of does make sense because, you know, with some people, they have an anxious attachment style with their mother or father or both of them. And then as they grow up, they experience more abuse. Maybe someone else comes into the picture, a stepfather, or there's a divorce, or maybe they're living with an aunt and they get really bad abuse. And suddenly they're all over the place. They can do this. They can be intimate one moment and then they can't, and they have explosive anger the next. So these people relate to disorganized attachment because they don't feel like they're fully avoidant, but they're not fully anxious. So all 4 of them are useful: disorganized, secure, anxious, and avoidant. But just we have to see them as a sliding scale, something that
which
you're
means
not strictly.
which means a lot of people are not just strictly anxious. You're not fully just anxious. The more anxious you get, in fact, the more you become also avoidant because you gotta tune out a little bit. Your nervous system is overloaded with stimulus, with your stress, with your cortisol. So then, so the sliding scale works in a way where, okay, on one end you have secure. I think it's this end. on one end you have secure.
We'll have it up on the screen.
We'll have a little chart on the screen. You have secure, which is great, which is what you want to aim for. And if you have kids, you want them to grow up with secure attachment style. That is such a gift. And as you said once, that's like giving the golden ticket to life.
Yeah,
right?
it's like being given a golden ticket to life. It is.
It is that valuable. And by the way, when you're secure, it's a very resilient thing. It's like, it's so much value, resourcefulness. Let's talk about that study by Mario Bicolinsa.
Yeah.
He found that people who were securely attached, like truly securely attached, after they studied prisoners of war.
During the Gulf War?
Perhaps.
After the Gulf War.
One of the wars. So they studied prisoners of war, and the individuals who were securely attached, years afterwards, they had literally no PTSD.
Yeah.
All the PTSD symptoms vanished. Whereas the ones who are insecurely attached, which is every other category, they have much more significant and lasting impacts of PTSD.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So don't take it for granted. It's a big deal to have secure attachment style.
Yeah.
So you have secure, and then you ease into anxious.
Yeah.
Okay. And as you get more anxious, then you develop more avoidant patterns, and that becomes more disorganized because you have anxious at sometimes, and then you also have avoidant patterns in there as well. And when you finally get to the other end of this sliding scale, you have a completely avoidant, and when they're completely avoidant, I think that there's no going back. You're not getting that person back.
Yeah.
Those are the people who turn out to be like clinical psychopaths. Because
that's on the extreme end of avoidant. That's where you get
because nothing else, no feedback sort of gets them. So they're in their own world.
They're in their bubble. It's a bubble that they create to mimic a secure base that was supposed to be given to them by their caregivers, mother or father, but it was never given. So this weird bubble, it's kind of like they're floating above the rest of the world and people. They never relate to anyone. They never actually.
They just pretend. But they have their own agendas and,
still have their agendas. They're living, breathing humans.
Yeah.
But whether they have a soul or not, that's debatable. Sorry to say, but...
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly how people describe them, as having no soul.
You reckon people describe it that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was only us.
No, people. That's the way that people describe these types of people. Because they have no warmth. There's no way to relate to them. Right. So when you're totally avoidant, there's no coming back. When you're anxious, you can still do something about that. You can still nurture yourself enough to make yourself more secure and cultivate a deeper sense of secure attachment. But when you get to avoidant, it's gone.
You know what, with avoidance, and I've read a lot of studies since before I had my first son, which is probably before my first son was 13 years ago now, you can tell that with avoidance, the only time they're ever going to be forced into anxiousness is through extreme trauma or something huge happening in their lives. For example, they lose a spouse or a huge traumatic physical accident or something like that, and they're forced to, they can no longer maintain that bubble. But they don't necessarily function as a normal human with a soul would. They may react, they may get some anxiety, but they react with hostility. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
they show up as more hostile.
They don't lean on their relationships because they don't have any, basically. Now, of course, you can be in a relationship, but still not have a relationship. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so avoidant people can be in a relationship
Absolutely.
or a marriage, but there is no relationship there.
Yeah, because remember, avoidants are great at masking. So you can have an avoidant who totally acts the part of a gentleman, of someone who is pleasant and polite and knows all the right things to do, okay? Because they've been raised in that environment. For example, if you're raised with enough rules and regulations that are drilled into you over and over again, you know how to act. So there's your attachment style, which is you deep down inside. And then there's how people have trained you to react from childhood. And you can also see these studies have shown, for example, I think it was during the Gulf War again, they've done studies on how the anxious, avoidant, secure reacted during the war. And you can see that there's no difference in how they react in an emergency. For example, I don't remember the specific type of emergency, but the reason is only because they've been drilled in multiple times through government messaging. They were the society's rules. You react this way when this happens during the war. They all know the right thing to do. So even avoidants can do what is told of them, right? So avoidants can act the part, but that doesn't mean they have real intimacy. And that doesn't mean that they value the relationship they're in at all.
No, that's right. So it's very important for you to understand that this sliding scale is where you belong rather than just a strict set of categories.
Yeah.
And again, if you haven't done our quiz, go to reneeslinks.com. And you just scroll down and find the attachment styles quiz and go through that. It will take you like 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes max. And we'll give you a score on that sliding scale and an explanation what that kind of means. And also what it means to your relationship as well. Because at the end of the day, having a relationship as a securely attached person feels very different to having a relationship as an anxiously attached person.
Yes,
I'm sure you'd agree.
I mean, yeah, I agree. For sure. Yeah. So it's important to remember here that even if you're anxiously attached, it's important to know how anxious are you? Are you quite insecurely attached? You experience anxiety a lot when intimacy is asked of you or when you try to get close to someone and they try to get close to you? Or do you just experience a little bit of anxiety, but you're actually securely attached?
Which I think a lot of people are in that boat.
Yeah.
We'll have anxiety in relationships at some point.
Yeah.
That's normal, right? It doesn't mean that you're anxiously attached. So it's important to have this understanding of this scale so that you go, okay, I'm here. I have tendencies, but that doesn't mean that I'm in that category.
Yeah.
So you know which direction to move as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. So go do that quiz, get your attachment score. And if you found any value in this video, consider giving it a thumbs up.
And also before you go, make sure you watch this video because we are going to talk more about attachment styles and how it affects every single relationship in your life.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.